This week we'll be talking about management of human resources. The concept of a merit-based civil service personnel system serves as a principal organizing feature of this chapter. The authors address the importance of managing the people who work in government organizations, and they examine the reasons behind the rules, regulations, and the red tape that often appear as roadblocks to effective personnel management. This chapter covers the rise of the spoils system in the United States and the move to reform the civil service based on merit rather than political favoritism, including the creation of the Pendleton Act, Civil Service Reform Act, and more recent efforts at reinvention. The discussion also addresses the ways in which these reforms have been adopted at the state and local levels. Chapter 6 will examine the main components of the personnel function, including classification systems, recruiting, and pay systems. Conditions of employment are also addressed in this section, as those who hire and manage government employees must be concerned with issues of drug use, sexual harassment in the workplace, the rights of individuals with HIV and AIDS, violence in the workplace, and processes for removing employees. A key component of this chapter is detailed discussion about the changes in the relationship between labor and management in the public sector, and the rise and decline of public sector unions. The authors trace the history of public sector unions, outlining the conditions that led to their development and affecting their growth. We've seen a lot of controversial discussion in the news and in the media, particularly about this subject. Labor management relations at the federal level are also contrasted with those at state and local levels. This section offers a detailed description of the steps in the bargaining process and discusses the implications of the decision on the part of employees to strike. This section closes with a look at recent efforts to limit collective bargaining rights for public employees at the federal, state, and local levels. This could theoretically impact a number of you depending on your future career choices. The chapter then moves to an examination of fundamental issues of discrimination in public employment. This will include a review of the development and purpose of equal employment opportunity and affirmative action programs, and it lightly examines the Americans with Disabilities Act. The authors detail the varying approaches to enforcing compliance among employers as defined by federal guidelines and key court decisions, and they'll discuss recent developments and attempts to correct past patterns of discrimination against women and minorities through affirmative action. This section will also include an examination of the problems of extending diversity through public organizations and the gaps that still are being experienced by women and minorities in terms of pay, job status, and overall employment opportunity. The final section of the chapter deals with the difficult relations between political appointees and career executives. The authors argue that the tension between political responsiveness and managerial effectiveness that characterizes public administration is illustrated particularly well in the relationship between political appointees and career public executives. As appointees become the bosses of career civil servants, tensions may arise because the political appointee wishes to move in new policy directions but often has little experience in government operations, while the career executive has both knowledge and expertise, but, aware of potential problems, may appear reluctant to change. The attempt to reconcile the two positions, the authors note, brings the focus back to the questions of politics and administration. I'd suggest reading this chapter first, then look at each of the exercises that follow in this module. It's important to have this basic foundational knowledge from the chapter as it relates to public administration and human resources that affects all of us.